I intend to, thank you, Paul. And that's it for this evening's program. Stay with us for our new special, The End of the Line, all about the closure of Ford. That's next.
Hello, I'm Tamara O'Dine. Welcome to this special ABC News program marking the end of an era.
To see the last Falcon come off the line, and certainly the manufacturing to cease in this country, this is one hell of a sad day, I can tell you.
It's the making of us, not just as a town, but as a nation. And if you lose sight of that, you're going to forget who you were.
It's no use saying that we're going through transition if this means that you lose your livelihood. So what are the new jobs going to be?
It's been a long goodbye for Ford factory workers who learnt of their fate 3 years ago. Many have spent most of their lives with the company. Let's hear from three who together have clocked up more than 130 years.
I'm Richard Zabilski. I've been working at Ford for 46 years and I'm the longest serving employee leaving the company. When I started, I was on $18 a week. We couldn't really produce enough cars in the good days. Now, I started when there was no robots around, no mobile phones. There was absolutely nothing here. It was just everything was done by pencil. As soon as you lose manufacturing, I think it's destroying our country. People have got to make things, people have got to sell things. It's just a world of its own. Dad's still around and he belongs to the Ford Social Club. He's 90 years old and still there. Sad when you got to say goodbye to everybody because there's a lot of friendships over many, many years. Bit hard tearing up here. Oh, shit.
I'm Terry McKernan. I've worked at Ford Motor Company for 45 years. I was 16 and a half, straight out of school. There would have been around about 60 odd apprentices that were employed at that point in time. These days, of course, a lot of people only put on ones or twos. And there's a massive number of employees that have been here 40 and into the 30-year periods as well. So it's been a long life, family, history background, especially here in Geelong. I think it'll be frightening for a number of people, but I'd like to think that there's still going to be prospects for the future generations.
My name is Brian Macon. I've been with Ford Motor Company for 41 years, and when I started on this site, I think it was about 6,500 people in 1975. It was a large town. Back then, cars were either Holdens, Valiants, or a Falcon. Were generally the Falcon or the family cars. So they were busy times producing vehicles for Australians, and times have changed. The people make the place, and it's never been a place where you ever had a desire to want to leave. The opportunities I've had obviously won't exist for other people within the car industry. Of course, there's people within Ford manufacturing that will move on to other areas of the company. There's people that'll leave Ford that need to find employment, and I'm concerned about them. But it will leave a big hole because I look at the history of what Ford has done. 2 years ago, I was on an evaluation drive for our last Falcon, and there's a Model T, and we had the last Falcon, an FGX. Had them side by side, and I took a photo. There's the technology and there's the history of Ford in Australia, 91 years, and that photo means a lot to me. Catching up with everyone that I possibly can, shaking their hand, thanking them, and wishing them all the best for the future.
Sad goodbyes for many people and for the iconic Falcon, now officially a collector's item. While Australians will keep designing Fords, the new models we drive will no longer come out of Melbourne and Geelong. Cameron Best looks back on 91 years of car making.
This gleaming showcase is more than a car collection. It's a celebration of the blue oval mark and a public display of affection.
It's a big emotional thing. I call her my baby. Fell in love with it and I had to have one. Being a Ford fanatic, I had to get this one.
Bought the car as a 19-year-old when they first produced in October 1970 and have had the car ever since.
The XY Falcon 351 GT, or Shaker as it was known, was the fastest four-door production car in the world at the time, and it was love at first sight for Ron Tebby. It was Australian-made excellence, a high point in a classic era for locally produced Ford vehicles.
I wish we could turn back the clock and have these 40 or 50 years again, but unfortunately that's not likely to happen.
Ford is now bold new Falcon.
It might have been football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars, but in Geelong, Ford led the way.
If you bought a Ford between the 20s and the 60s, it had either been assembled or made in Geelong.
Cruise up and down this road, up and down this road.
And to be from Geelong is to identify to an extent with Ford.
In 1925, Geelong was the hub of Australian car making when the first Model T rolled out of the Ford plant. It may have commanded a princely sum at the time, but it sparked a manufacturing revolution lasting the best part of a century.
On the road again, I'm on the road again.
Now, a dedicated group of enthusiasts is determined to preserve that heritage and open a motoring museum in Geelong's industrial heartland. So Ken, this is where it all started, with the Model T Ford.
Yes, we've got a 1926 Model T Tourer there. That was made in Geelong, and beside it's a 1926 T tip truck, which is a very rare item today.
So this car was brought across in ships and put together here in Geelong?
Yeah, brought across in crates and assembled in the Dalgety wool store down in Brougham Street here in Geelong.
It's amazing what they could do back in the day.
Yes, yes, amazing. It put the world on wheels, that's for sure.
It's the making of us, not just as a town, but as a nation. That's how we got here. And if you lose sight of that, you're going to forget who you were. It's really important.
Get your motor running.
By 1960, Ford had expanded its factory into Melbourne, but needed a champion to combat Holden's domination of the Australian car market.
And now, our star.
The Falcon was born, originally a version of the US model. By the XM and XP series, it was fully Australian designed and built. This XP, she's home. She's driving past the Ford factory where she was built.
Where she was born. So just there's where it was stamped. The engine was made over the road. And so this is culturally where it was home.
What draws you to these old cars?
Well, it's about the feel, but just the smell of the thing. It just smells fantastic. Cars don't smell like this anymore. It just instantly takes you back to another time when things were just a bit simpler. And we didn't have to worry about cruise control and trip meters and complicated things. And we steered and we drove, and that was it.
It's a going thing, Ford. It's the way to swing. Go and have your fling. It's a going thing.
By the early 70s in the muscle car era, Ford Australia were producing cars that were the signature cars. And right through the extended 80s and 90s and up to the present day, those Falcons are uniquely Australian.
Once a family favourite, the Falcon has fallen victim to global economic forces and falling demand. The high cost of making cars here means the end of the road for Australia's longest-running nameplate.
It's sad for all of those who grew up with manufacturing in Australia that manufacturing will cease across all the major marques. And we live in hope for the future.
For Ford, the future does include maintaining local research, engineering and testing facilities, designing cars for the Australian and international markets. Even after manufacturing ends in Australia, Ford has 5 years of work booked with the product development team, and this facility in the Yuyangs is right in the centre of that. In its heyday, over 5,000 people helped make cars in this heritage-listed factory. The machines may have fallen silent, but the spirit lingers.
We're from Geelong. If you give us a shed and a toolbox, eventually we'll make something. So give us a minute, we'll be right back to you.
Geelong's not the only community to forge its identity by making things. The Ford assembly plant closure will leave an empty space the size of a suburb in Melbourne's north. Jean Edwards reports from Broadmeadows.
A sprawling Battler suburb built on manufacturing's muscle. It's Ford territory. A source of blue-collar pride, a home to Melbourne's migrants, and an economy at a crossroads.
Broadmeadows matters because it symbolises hope. This was the post-war settlement in Australia, and the families who had the imagination to dream of a better future and the courage to cross the world, this is where you got your start in what my late father always described as the land of opportunity. So it's now evolved into a United Nations in one neighbourhood with people from more than 160 different nationalities now calling Australia home. Show you through.
Labor MP Frank Maguire grew up in this house.
This is the photo that I've got on my office wall. So we're standing here, so Dad's here, Mum's here, I'm just a little boy and she's got a gloved hand.
His parents moved into their 3-bedroom commission house when the Ford factory opened for business in 1959.
Broadmeadows, Victoria, where one of the world's largest automobile manufacturers makes a practical expression of faith in Australia's future with the establishment of a £12 million assembly plant.
Mr Maguire believes Broadmeadows has become a flashpoint for national concerns, globalisation and the demise of local manufacturing, population growth and multiculturalism, new jobs and a fair go.
Only the accents, not the aspirations, have changed since my family came here.
More than half of the people who live in this multicultural melting pot speak a language other than English. Alan Upoko used to make car interiors for Ford, but he's now running his own business furnishing people's gardens. He's worried about his children growing up in Struggletown.
Every day I live in this area, I see so much, as you can see, there's a lot of drug users around here and stuff like that. Not that I'm saying that it's their fault, but, but I just don't want my kids to see all those things, Broadie would be the roughest area. That's why they call it the Bronx.
Tony Casabini has worked at Ford for almost 30 years. He's swapping his tools of the trade to return to a hairdressing career cut short by his first redundancy in the 1980s.
It was quite funny when you say to people, I'm going to become a hairdresser, because everyone's doing trade at the moment at work, and I'm saying, no, I'm fine, I'll just go back to the old trade. And he goes, oh, what's your old trade? Oh, it's hairdressing. Oh, really? So, yeah, so they're quite shocked, I think.
Fittingly, Mr Casabini is a hairdresser on wheels. He's set up a mobile salon to make house calls on the elderly and people with disabilities.
I get satisfaction in the content that by giving them a service that they reciprocate by feeling great about themselves. It's beautiful, just some of the interaction you get with other people and some of the stories you get, it's phenomenal. This is a 1936 Austin 7 Tourer.
But his car collection remains a constant.
This is a little baby. We call this the baby Miss Piggy, this one. And you'll see in a minute why it's called Miss Piggy.
Aha, butcher's van.
It's a little butcher's van.
For some, redundancy means retirement. For others, reinvention.
Some of the guys have been here 30 odd years, 40 years, and so all I know is Ford from when they were kids. So they, but most of the day, hopefully some of those guys will retire. But the ones that are going to move forward, looking for other jobs, look, hopefully people out there will give them a go. And they are great workers. They're punctual. They know their jobs. Once they know their job, they're not robots. So just keep going. They won't let you down.
A working class hero is something to be.
At lunchtime, Ford's labourers often come to rest and refuel across the road. But takeaway shop owners fear the Ford factory's closure will kill their business too.
To be honest, it's pretty bad. all right, fair enough, we do have our night customers and the dinner time and everything, but we do need the lunch rush as well. Like, it's pretty sad and upsetting personally and for the business as well.
A really well built school and has been, redeveloped.
Frank Maguire hopes Ford's demise will eventually give Melbourne's economic engine room a rev up. He's proposing turning the site into a logistics centre for the Inland Rail project and replacing old commission estates with a mix of public, private and social housing.
You can't leave poor people isolated and marginalised at the end of the line without hope, because that's what this community has always stood for and has always delivered. And this is where we have to have the will and the wit and the nous to do this.
Ford is leading the way and Holden isn't far behind. It's preparing to shut down in South Australia next year. Mike Coggan looks at the prospects for Elizabeth and the surrounding shire of Playford.
Elizabeth, South Australia. To you perhaps just a name, but to us here in South Australia, a city, the newest planned city in the Commonwealth of Australia.
This 1960 film promotes a city named after the English monarch as a perfect place for migrants to set up home.
Now, jobs. What's the employment situation like? Are there any big firms close by?
The city grew quickly around factories building white goods, sewing machines and Australian cars.
And General Motors Holden's is pretty big business up this way now, with a modern, well-equipped factory in very pleasant surroundings.
A very large city indeed has grown up. Population of some 25,000 people. A very pleasant place to live in has been established. I believe that the people of Elizabeth are very happy people indeed.
Half a century later, that happiness has been rocked by the announcement that Holden will stop making cars in 2017.
A bit depressed about the situation, but I wish they could stay here.
It's going to set a lot of people back. Employment status is going to be down to the ground even more.
We've already got pretty much one of the highest unemployment rates in the Adelaide metro area, so yeah, I can see that something will be needed to fill that gap.
But there are business and political leaders who see the Holden shutdown as an opportunity.
So in the Playford Council area, we've got close to 90,000 residents. In the Elizabeth suburb, it's about 30,000 people. It's also got large horticultural and agricultural spaces, and obviously an urban spine and centre.
The heart of Playford is being transformed into a digitally connected CBD.
Playford is now being sold as an agile city of the future. State and local governments are investing millions to attract private investment, and it's paying dividends.
What we will see is a new 4.5-star hotel. We'll see large multi-storey mixed-use office accommodation and residential. We'll also see just over here a new health and aged care centre, along with a proposed recreational and ice skating rink and entertainment facility right here in the heart of Elizabeth.
Don't stay always around the ball, just move and use the space. Come on, Greens, now. Yeah. Come on.
Council investment has led Adelaide United Soccer Club to establish its home ground in Playford and a training program for these children.
Look up.
Out of Adelaide United actually moving their training base for their players, we've been able to redevelop a disused part of our old swimming centre for them to bring their administration.
Kane Butterfield loves his work at Holden and wants to stay on as long as he can. He's thinking about starting up a gardening business when the factory closes.
I think in the beginning there was a lot of doom and gloom about it all, but as far as I can see, it's quite positive. A lot of people see it as a great opportunity to do something different.
We have parts that we're manufacturing for Boeing aircraft now.
This company just across the road from the Holden factory has new contracts for the Air Force's new strike fighter jets being built in the US. The company wants to employ some of the 1,700 workers to be laid off by Holden.
We obviously can't take them all because we're only a small company, but hopefully there will be someone in there that we can then transition from automotive into what we do in defence aerospace.
The people of Elizabeth are used to hearing negative predictions about the Holden shutdown, but there's growing confidence hundreds of millions of dollars worth of proposed development will make a difference.
The sausage roll went in it, Corey? Yeah. All right, sausage roll with sauce? Yeah.
Small business owner Ben Pacillo moved his family from central Adelaide out to Elizabeth 2.5 years ago.
We're happy to be here. We've bought a place in Elizabeth, so that sort of shows some confidence, I guess. So yeah, we're very much Elizabeth people now. We're happy in this area, in the city of Playford.
Turnover at his cafe has increased, and he expects it will stay that way.
We don't see a lot of change dribbling down to our level, I suppose, as business owners of a small shop in a centre. We think that any sort of negative connotation, perhaps, of Holden's closure has been completely negated by some excellent proactive work from council.
It's not just job losses on car assembly lines. The flow-on effects are expected to be drastic. Ford and the other big car makers will maintain engineering and design facilities after 2017. But for many auto parts suppliers, the future is far less certain. Emily Stewart reports.
Nobody gonna take my car, I'm gonna race into the ground.
Soon, this will be the only car manufactured in Australia.
It's gonna break the speed of sound.
It's very daunting, it's exciting, it's a shame.
Tom Car is a commercial off-road vehicle, largely for the defence, mining and agricultural industries. Handmade in Melbourne, production started just 4 years ago. It takes 4 days to make just one car.
We offer a high-value niche product where we don't need huge volumes to survive. 300-400 vehicles a year is a healthy business for us, whereas the traditional car companies need to produce 300 or 400 vehicles a day to be profitable.
Tom Car is an outstanding example of an enterprising company that has not sat on their laurels.
Tom Car is made by MTM. For decades, MTM made door handles and gear shifts for the local car manufacturers. Now it's one of 20 suppliers that Ford has connected with its global buyers.
We've run trade missions to the US, trade missions to China. We brought our global leadership here to meet with our suppliers, and that's been the great end result.
But not all have been so lucky. The Productivity Commission has warned 40,000 jobs could go as Ford, Holden and Toyota close their plants. Most multinational suppliers plan to shut up shop in Australia and focus on manufacturing markets elsewhere, like Japanese-owned Denso, which has been around since 1972, but will close when Toyota leaves, putting 300 workers out of a job.
The local ones are making a more determined effort to obviously to stay in business and to stay afloat. Those who haven't found new markets or new products already are really going to be up against it because the clock is ticking for them.
The number of suppliers in the auto industry has already shrunk from 148 2 years ago to just 115. The Federation of Automotive Products Manufacturers says most of that is through consolidation rather than shutdowns, and warns the wave of closures will happen after the last car manufacturer, Toyota, leaves in 2017.
We don't expect them all to survive. We want as many as possible to go through in one form or another. We're aware of up to 50 supply chain companies that will continue to supply the automotive industry globally.
I love the auto industry. It's been terrific to me. So I'm very sad that it's going. It's led our innovation, it's helped us bring new technology, it's employed a lot of people.
CME has supplied the big car manufacturers for decades. It uses composite materials to make parts lighter.
This is the spare wheel well that goes into the boot of the Commodore.
Car manufacturing wind down is already having an impact. CME's gone from making 100,000 wheel containers just 2 years ago to 35,000 this year. With a choice of shutting down or innovating, Brian Hughes scoured the world for new industries.
New industries are not that easy to enter because as I go in, I have to replace someone.
He's found opportunities in food manufacturing and the construction industry. His 3 factories around Melbourne are now making new products, like trays for global confectionery producers like Mars and Nestle.
It replaces timber, and we are now sending a container a week out on this, looking to extend our operations through Europe and Asia.
From almost all auto products, now just 30% of his business relies on the industry. But it's a much riskier business. Volumes are much lower than what the car industry orders.
In some ways it can create panic, in some ways it can create fear, and in some ways it can create an opportunity.
When it comes to Ford's racing history, one name springs to mind: Dick Johnson. I caught up with him before the Sandown 500 recently. At 71, he's no longer a speed demon, but he's still a force behind supercar racing. How are you feeling about your chances this year?
It's been a pretty tough year. I don't think we've lived up to expectations.
And you don't sort of suffer any pangs of wishing you were in the driver's seat ever?
No, not now. I think I've done enough, and I'd make a goose of myself. These are a very refined racing car now. They're not a hotted up road car like we used to race.
You're a 5-time Australian Touring Car Champion, 3-time winner of the Bathurst 1000. Also very well known by motorsport fans for a particular incident with a rock at Bathurst in 1980.
Well, look, at the time it was probably the worst thing that ever happened to me. As I turned out of the cutting and came up, crested a bit of a hill, I noticed that there was a truck there, which I knew because the flags were waving. But beside the truck was this rock, because they'd stopped there to pick this rock up, which had rolled down onto the track.
And we're talking about a football-sized rock.
Yeah, it was a football-sized rock, which I still do have. So,
right.
Yeah, and I tried to. I wasn't going to go under the back of a truck, so I tried to get round the rock, but ended up hitting the rock and hitting the fence, and that was the end of our race. And what transpired from there was something you could never orchestrate. People started ringing the channel, the TV channel up, saying we want to donate money to sort of get him back on the road for next year.
And you came back and won the following year?
Yeah, we came back
and
won.
What did that win mean to you?
Oh, look, that was probably the most pressure I've ever felt as far as at a racetrack or any racetrack, because of the support we had from Bathurst.
And for Ford and Holden fans and owners, bragging rights really are determined by what happens out on the track. What's it been like for you throughout your racing career to have been so central to that fierce rivalry in Australia?
Well, look, it's what this category is all about. This country, you wouldn't believe just how divided the fans really are, although they do have a lot of respect for the individual drivers. So many people come up to me and say, look, I said, I'm a Holden fan, but we really appreciate, what you've done over the years, etc., etc. So, they're very appreciative of both sides. There's certain areas at Bathurst where that's a Holden area and that's a Ford area.
It's almost tribal.
It is virtually tribal, yeah, and it's great to see.
Dick, your name has gone hand in glove with the Ford badge for so many years now. So what are your thoughts on the fact that the last Ford car is rolling off the assembly line?
This is one hell of a sad day, I can tell you, because a lot of my life has gone with the Ford badge all over me, and to see the last Falcon come off the line, and certainly the manufacturing to cease in this country, as far as Ford's concerned, is a real disappointment to me. It really is. But unfortunately, it's just a sign of the times.
So even though Australian designers and engineers will still be developing global vehicles for Ford, do you think it will matter that we're no longer driving Australian-made cars?
Look, I don't suppose it's going to matter because, change is something that happens on a daily basis. It doesn't matter what business you're in. And unless we accept change, you'll die on the vine. And obviously, this is the way the world is going, because the world's a much smaller place now and we don't have to be individual anymore. But as long as it's still got the Ford badge on it, I don't mind.
And of course the timing is such that it's the Bathurst qualifying round on the last day of Ford production in Australia. What do you think fans are going through on a day like today?
For today to be qualifying for the Bathurst 1000 and to be the last Falcon to roll off the production line, it's a date we won't forget, that's for sure, albeit very sad. If I could go out, or our team can go out and win this race, what a fitting way to say an end to the era of the Falcon in Australia.
Dick Johnson, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
It is certainly my pleasure too.
And good luck to Dick Johnson and his team at Bathurst. That's it from me. I'll leave you with images of the very last Australian-made Ford Falcon to roll off the line. Good night.